Welcome to this video series Mayan Magick, where I'll be discussing Mayan Aztec mythology and ceremonial tradition, taking a good look at the gods, ancient practices, rites and stories of Mesoamerica. In this video, I'll be taking a look at one of the longest worshipped Mayan deities, first known from the proto-classic Maya sites, Chaac, the benevolent god of fertility, rain and lightning, but also the bringer of maize. Agriculture was a huge concern for the Maya civilization. If the rains didn't fall, harvests and crops wouldn't grow, and if torrential rain fell, terrible floods would damage farmlands. In order to keep food supplies plentiful, Chaac would need to be appeased. The mythology states that rain deities are often associated with maize and vegetables. In some versions of the myth, Chaac is the brother of the sun god who is named Kanish Ajor. Together they defeated their wicked aging adoptive mother and her lover. Later on, Chaac commits adultery with the wife of his brother, and for this he is punished. His emotional tears of sorrow gave origin to rain as he cried with regret. The appearance of this weather god is striking. He has catfish-like whiskers, a reptilian snout, large round eyes, fangs, knotted hair, and fish-like scales on his body. Chaac is often depicted fishing with a net and carrying a creel on his back. In his post-classic form, he appears generally more human, but still retains a reptilian form and sometimes resembles an elderly man. He is sometimes known as God with long nose. It is interesting to see how the depictions change somewhat throughout the different periods of Mayan history. He is often shown carrying his weather-related weapons, a stone axe or a serpent, and a shield. In his classic form, he wears a shell as an earpiece. Due to his strong association with rain, Chaac will often appear over water, rivers, and streams. He serves as the patron god of ancient agriculture and protects precious water sources for the people. Chaac was credited with cracking open a legendary rock that was thought to contain the original life-giving maize, corn. He gave this maize to the Mayan people. Depictions of this story are shown within Mayan pottery that date back at least 1,000 years. But Chaac is believed to have been worshipped by the Mayans for over 2,000 years. With his axe of lightning, he violently strikes clouds, which in turn creates thunder and rain. He is also strongly associated with the feathered serpent. Like most Mayan gods, Chaac has strong relation to the four directions. You have Chaac Zib Chaac, the red Chaac of the east, who represents the element of fire, Chaac Zib Chaac, the white Chaac of the north, representing the element of air, X Zib Chaac, the black Chaac of the west, representing water, and Khan Zib Chaac, the yellow Chaac of the south, representing earth. Sometimes there would be a fifth direction known as Yax, which is green, and that is the center. Collectively, they were known as the Chakab. The Mayans assigned directions to them because they believed that Chaac would protect all areas of the Maya world, not missing a single corner. In order to generate rain, Mayan priests would sometimes practice weather magic by means of human sacrifice. The priests who hold the four limbs of the victim were termed Chaaks. Rain-making rituals would sometimes involve laying out a lavish banquet for the weather gods. Four boys would represent a different cardinal direction, and they would each chant as frogs to call forth rain. This is due to the belief that frogs and toads were always close companions to Chaac because they would always croak before a thunderstorm. Masks and ceramic statues of Chaac were created, as well as statues of frog-like creatures. Another example of a ritual involving Chaac would be four Chaaks having different roles in relation to fire. So one Chaac would start the fire, one would take the fire, one would give scope and fuel to the fire, and one would put it out. 4 priests would sit in 4 different corners of the altar. The hearts of the animals would be sacrificed into the flames, and then the 4 Mayan priests would pour water over the fire to put out the flames. Notice how the number 4 always comes up within Mayan tradition, not just with the Maya, but also the whole Mesoamerican culture in general. This is due to an entity or a force known as Lamat, which oversees the entire universe. Lamat is the seed of all creation, and he likes to physically manifest as a rabbit here on the earthly plane, and he also appears to humans as the legendary Captain Lamat. If you want to know more about Lamat, check out my very detailed video on him. I would advise that you research and look deeply into Lamat whilst you are studying Mayan mythology and history. It's only there that you will get a greater understanding of the divine number 4. Other rituals involving Chaac within the 16th century involves young men and women being lowered into water-filled wells. These wells represent the realm of rain deities. Unlike a lot of rain and weather deities, Chaac does not live within the skies or the clouds, he lives within the earth, within water-filled sinkholes. So that's a huge contrast between some of the Taoist weather magic deities like Lei Gong. When you pray to Lei Gong, you look up to the sky. When you pray to Chaac, you look down to a river or a puddle or a reflection in the water. Even in the modern day, Mayan farmers have preserved a lot of the rain-making traditions, and they still pray to Chaac in times of drought. Thunder in Maya mythology is not seen as evil or frightening, but as life-giving and nourishing because of its connection with rain. Lightning has strong relation to serpents due to lightning bolts that appear to undulate like snakes in the night sky, which is why lightning is often represented by flaming snakes. One interesting point that needs to be brought up when discussing Mayan rain deities is their relationship with a lot of the old Mayan rulers. In fact, during the early periods of Mayan history, these rulers were said to be able to communicate directly with rain gods, and so the rulers themselves were seen as rainmakers. The Chaac of the East was the title of a king of Chichen Itza. Chaac is also seen as the patron deity of the number 13, which to most people 13 is seen as unlucky, but the Maya viewed the number 13 as sacred. So how would a modern magician make contact with Chaac today? If you need to summon rain or prevent drought, you would typically perform a prayer asking for rain on the 20th day of every month at exactly 4 a.m. in the morning. Chaac likes offerings of maize, chocolate, and jade. A small and simple altar should be created made from natural materials such as wood, rock, and branches. Whilst at the altar, you will need a large bucket filled with water, 13 candles, and a statue of a frog. The water represents the realm of the rain deities, the candles correspond to Chaac as he is the patron of 13, and the frog statue is there to encourage rainfall. Perform the prayer whilst looking at your own reflection in the bucket of water, and ask Chaac to send a healthy amount of rain. Be specific of how long you want the rain and where you want it. Name the exact time when you want the rain to come, how long you want it to last, and name the exact location. I think a lot of the time when we are discussing why magic fails, it isn't because of a lack of intention or a lack of concentration on the magician's part. It's usually because people overlook the importance of being very, very detailed about your spell. If you're not specific down to the very last detail, it could fail, and you don't want to create any room for that failure. Within a few hours, the rains should arrive. My personal experience with Chaac has always been very positive. Whenever I require rain, I will seek his assistance because I have found him to be very reliable. I hope this video has been informative to you. I will be covering more Mayan and Aztec gods in the near future. Take care. Thank you for watching.